This year, Purim, Habolein L'Teva, falls out on Friday. Something that's pretty uncommon, though the last time it happened was 4 years ago, Tafshin Pei Aleph. The time before was 13 years before that, and the next time it's going to happen is in 20 years, Taf Hey, 2045. It's not just that it's unique because it falls out on a Friday, as we'll see. 3 of the mitzvahs don't change. None of the mitzvahs change, but it doesn't change at all. Mikra Megillah, even if it's on a Friday, by davening, you listen to the Megillah. Mishloach Manis, it could be you have to cut down a little bit on the Mishloach Manis, it's a shorter day. Matanas Lavyonim. The SEUDAH. When do you make the SEUDAH? On a regular year, the Ramah says the minig is, not that you have to, but the minig is, people make the SEUDAH in the afternoon. The Ramah says the minig is to make, that people make it in the afternoon, but don't start too late, that most of the SEUDAH ends up after Purim. Agav, part of it being not common is also B'negei in Yerushalayim. This year's a Purim Sholish. And there already, all the mitzvahs, all 4 mitzvahs, bepashtas, get moved off from Shabbos. It's a separate discussion, maybe next week a Shiur and the night Kollel. But we're going to focus this morning on the SEUDAH. One of the 4 mitzvahs is making a SEUDAH. On a regular year, the Purim SEUDAH, normally people make it in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, depending if you change the clock, later in the afternoon. This year that it's Friday, being that it's Friday, and the halacha is in Hilchas Shabbos, Siman Reish Mem Tes, which is the siman for the halachas that are shayach, that are negeya for EREV Shabbos. The halacha the Shulchan Aruch says is that you're not allowed to be koveya SEUDAH on EREV Shabbos. Not talking about a lunch. You have lunch every single day. You can eat lunch Friday also. But a SEUDAH that you usually do not have, for example, a birthday party, a SEUDAH Spreda, such a SEUDAH you're now allowed to make on Friday, even in the morning. That's the din in Shulchan Aruch, Reish Mem Tes Bais. Why? Why can't you make a SEUDAH, what you usually don't have, not breakfast and lunch, but something that's not the regular? The reason is that when you should come into Shabbos to be able to eat the SEUDAH l'tayavan. Like I say many times, and I tell my kids also, it doesn't mean that you should be starving Friday night. That's also not covered Shabbos, and that's why we spoke that you don't fast on Friday. But to come in, you should be able to eat the SEUDAH l'tayavan. So basically, you're not supposed to eat Friday afternoon. You can eat, even as a matter of fact, this is the whole Friday. You're not supposed to eat in a way that you're not, a SEUDAH Spreda or something like that, you're not allowed to make Friday. So what's the gabe the SEUDAH Purim? If you can't make a SEUDAH, so what's about SEUDAH Purim? Could you eat the SEUDAH Purim? What do you do? So Avada, we do make the SEUDAH Purim even on Friday. It's Pashat. And the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah over there itself addresses not Lagabe SEUDAH Purim, but the Ramah addresses other SEUDAHs that you could make. For an example, a bris, SEUDAH's bris, and a SEUDAH's bris. After the bris, you make a SEUDAH, and that's the 8th day. And if it's on Friday, he's a bris today, you make the SEUDAH today. And if the bris is in the afternoon, you make the SEUDAH in the afternoon. So you could SEUDAH's bris, SEUDAH's pidyon haben. My brother made a pidyon haben about 2 years ago, Friday afternoon, and Avad is a SEUDAH. So the mailer like this, just like you could have a SEUDAH's bris and a SEUDAH's pidyon haben on Friday. SEUDAH's Rosh Chodesh is a little bit questionable if you could. This past Rosh Chodesh Adar was Friday and Shabbos. Some say you could, Aruch HaShulchan says that not. If that's considered like a SEUDAH's bris, is it a SEUDAH's mitzvah that you could make it on Friday? But Al Kapanim, a SEUDAH's bris, a SEUDAH's pidyon haben, you can make on Friday because that's zmana. The fee that the same thing would be also SEUDAH's PURIM. Avada, SEUDAH's PURIM. PURIM this year falls out on Friday. Avada, you make the SEUDAH. You make the SEUDAH. You make the SEUDAH on Friday. The question, however, is it like every year you make the SEUDAH, and every year if you make the SEUDAH at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, is it this year the same thing as well, or not? The Chafetz Chaim in Hilchos Shabbos says that Avada, when you do make a SEUDAH's bris, Avada litchatchila, you should make it in the morning. Litchatchila, you should make it in the morning. What's the makor for this thing that the Chafetz Chaim says you should do it in the morning? Or at least, if not the makor, but we find it already in the Rambam. The Rambam over here in Hilchos Purim says that when Purim falls out on EREV Shabbos, like a year like this year, you should make the SEUDAH in the morning. You should make the SEUDAH in the morning. Why? Avada, you have to make the SEUDAH on Friday. That's when Purim is, and it's a mitzvah medivrei Kabbalah to have a SEUDAH. However, you could still, these are l'tchatchila to make the SEUDAH in the morning. So like this, if you eat the SEUDAH in the morning, by the time Friday night comes, you'll be able to eat the SEUDAH of Shabbos l'tayavai. When exactly, when is in the morning? When in the morning? So the Mishabura says, Koidem Chatzos. The morning is a long time morning. When Shachris, the Ramah says Shachris, these Shachris over here every 15 minutes from 6:15 a.m. the whole morning. When exactly? When in the morning? So the Mishabura says Shachris means Koidem Chatzos. Koidem Chatzos. You should make sure you should eat the SEUDAH Koidem Chatzos. For this year, Chatzos is when? Chatzos is 1:05. 4 years ago, when it was Purim on a Friday, we didn't change the clock yet, so it was more like in the 12 area. I think I look back, 12:09. But this year, if a person wants to go with the Ramah strictly, it would be the SEUDAH before 1:05. What does it mean? The SEUDAH should be Shachris before 1:05. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, Yaschilu. As long as you start the SEUDAH before Chatzos, then you have the litchatchila of what the Ramah says. So, if let's say your SEUDAH is 1 o'clock, we stop right here. Your SEUDAH is 1 o'clock. You should try to wash before 1:05. The Ramah says litchatchila you should eat the SEUDAH Shachar SEUDAH's Purim. So Mamela, if it's gonna, your SEUDAH is 1 o'clock. If you could wash 1 o'clock, you're washing before Chatzos. So the emphasis is to be able to answer that question. I want to really bring out a different point also. It's interesting that the Ramah says to eat the SEUDAH's Purim, Shachris, but the Ramah in Hilchos Shabbos doesn't say to make the SEUDAH's bris Shachris. The Chafetz Chaim says you should make it in the morning if you could with Chatchila B'doima to like by Purim. Why did the Ramah wait all the way to the end of Orach Chaim, Tafresh Tzaddik Hey, to say that you should make the SEUDAH's Purim Friday in the morning? Why didn't he say the SEUDAH's bris in the morning? So one teretz you could say that Lamaisa, it's not always in the morning. If the bris is going to be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if the Pidyon Aben is in the afternoon, then it's not in the morning. But another teretz could be is that the SEUDAH's Purim is considered a SEUDAH Gedolah. And Memela, even a bris, maybe the Ramah would say there's no l'tchatchila dafka to do it in the morning. The bris is a SEUDAH, but it's not a SEUDAH Gedolah. The Purim SEUDAH is a SEUDAH Gedolah, and the Memela, the l'tchatchila is to do it in the morning. But often, what you're pointing out, Lamaisa, how l'te'avan is it going to be? You do have a point that if a person eats a big SEUDAH, and a chanami taka, and a chanami, it's not gonna be full of the tayavan. But hamiu, if you start before chatzos, you start at 1 o'clock, you finish at 3 o'clock, and lichbenchen next week is 6:44, and if you're gonna eat it, it's 8 o'clock, you might not be starving, but you'll be able to eat the SEUDAH. But we're going to get back to it a little bit more also about starting before Chatzos. So what do we have so far? Divided with a Clarkite. Purim, being that it falls out on a Friday, Avadi eat the SEUDAH. Purim, there's no Shiloh 100%, even though it's Friday, and you're not allowed to make an outside SEUDAH on Friday, but just like you're allowed to make a SEUDAH's bris and a SEUDAH's pidyon aben, of course you have the SEUDAH. The Ramah says the L'tchatchila is to start the SEUDAH. The Ramah says the SEUDAH Shacharis, and like the Aruch HaShulchan says Yaschilu, to start the SEUDAH before Chatzos. That's, let's call it the most L'tchatchila. The Mishnah Berurah over here in Hilchas Purim brings the Yad Afraim from the Maril, and the Maril says that the L'tchatchila is not before Chatzos, the L'tchatchila is before Shah Asiris. Before Shah Asiris. Just like we find EREV Pesach, the Mishnah in Arvei Pesachim says, there's an Isser to eat. There's an Isser to eat EREV Pesach, to be Kovei SEUDAH after Shah Asiris. After Shah Asiris. Shah Asiris means going into the 10th hour. Just to break it down, if you have 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, 2.5 hours before, plus a half hour on top of that, which Mamela would come out, let's call it, on a 12-hour block of a day, it would be 3 o'clock. So Shah Asiris, this year Shah Asiris Purim is 4:04. 4:04. So the Maril says the L'tchatchila to have the SEUDAH's Purim is before Shah Asiris, to start, either to have the whole SEUDAH, Al Kapanim to start, but Al Kapanim bedoimit to Pesach, just like Pesach, EREV Pesach, when you eat, you're not allowed to eat after Shah Asiris, and there it's for the Makayim, the mitzvahs, I say the rice of matzah, so too for Purim, it's to be able to Makayim SEUDAH Shabbos by night, which the Pashtus is not the Raisa, it's Medivrei Kabbalah. So there for sure you don't have to start. You don't have to start earlier than EREV Pesach, which you're allowed to eat the SEUDAH up until Shah Asiris. So too over here also.
That's for other years also, or only by EREV Shabbos?
What do you mean for other years?
You start by Shah Asiris.
Every year Purim, you could start the SEUDAH whenever you want. However, the Ramah says don't start it 5 minutes before the night, because then your SEUDAH is going to go into the night. But let's say your SEUDAH takes a half hour, and Shkia is 7 o'clock. It's a little after 7. You could start the SEUDAH on a regular at 6:30. But being that your SEUDAH is EREV Shabbos, we said from the Ramah, the L'tchatchila is to have the SEUDAH, to please start your SEUDAH before Chatzos. Says the Maril, Koidim Shah Asiris.
Too early? Is there a time that's too early to make a SEUDAH?
No.
9 o'clock in the morning.
You can make the SEUDAH any year. You can make the SEUDAH 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't go through it now. I went through it once in the past. When there's a whole interesting discussion when is the best time to make a SEUDAH on a regular year. But for sure, you could do it in the morning. Definitely. So the Maril, just like the Aruch HaShulchan we said in the Ramah, that the Iker is to start the SEUDAH before Chatzos, the Maril himself says the Iker is to start the SEUDAH before Shah Asiris. And the Aruch HaShulchan himself brings the Halacha to start before Shah Asiris. So the emes is if we stop right here, true the Ramah says in the morning, L'maisa the Mishnah Berurah brings from the Maril that L'tchatchila, as long as you start before Shah Asiris. So technically, for next week eating the SEUDAH's Purim, if you start the SEUDAH before 4:04, that's L'tchatchila. And technically, that's everybody will be being the Chaim, that L'tchatchila starting before 4:04. How much later could you already start the SEUDAH when Lichbenchen over here 18 minutes before Shkia 6:44? So 4 o'clock is already getting late.
You shouldn't let them in Makanda Ramah.
What'd you say?
You shouldn't try to in Makanda Ramah.
You're asking good. I don't know. I don't know how weit the Ramah says Shachris. Lamaisa the Meshabura brings that from the Maril that L'tchatchil is Sha'asiris. If it works out to do it, and it's not a lachatz, and the people in the Meshloach Manas, what's the tzad not to do it, to be Makayim the Ramah? But if the shot is, people get busy in the Meshloach Manas, and if you're eating a Suda somewhere else, and a person can't start the Suda before Chatzos, so then you'll start later. I've heard from people that they wash before Chatzos, and then they continue the Suda later.
One thing you for sure shouldn't do is wash and then go through
And wash again, because you were yoytze. Very good, beautiful point. You said if it's too early. If someone sat, it's very good. It's a very good point you bring out.
On a regular year, a lot of people do that.
They
They
sit
wash in the morning. They want to
know for sure they ate the Suda. Very good point. You mentioned before if it's too early. If somebody sits down in the morning, he washes down a bagel, cream cheese, eggs. How you're supposed to have boss of a dog, but if you already had the Suda in the morning, very good point. So you already yoytze the Suda. So what are you washing again? You already yoytze the Suda's PURIM. Good ara.
It's breakfast or it's my sister.
You're having a mind when you're eating breakfast that you're not eating Suda's PURIM. Good ara, good what to think about. But the santak, if you eat already in the morning, maybe it's not so posh to continue. Eat another Suda.
There's a minute to eat 2 Sudas, of course.
Yeah, so what was mentioned before, Lagabe, when's the best time to make the Suda? Yeah, that's a separate discussion. Not for now, but when's the best time to do? Earlier, later?
Make 2 Sudas.
Yeah. Also, to make 2 Sudas, yeah. Richtig. Some say bedafka in a regular year to make it later and go into the night. And maybe some talkers say you have the Suda also in the morning. Yeah, very good. If it's an Indian and a Mila to have 2 Sudas, but Erev Shabbos, let's not forget the covered Shabbos. You're not allowed to stam I have a Suda. If you yoytze already Suda's PURIM in the morning, not so posh that you should be able to have another Suda. Even if you want to eat 2 Sudas, you were yoytze the mitzvah already. What justifies to have another Suda? Good. It's what to be ma'ayah more. Good ara. Just to point out, we just said now that you can start your Suda before Sha'asiris. Before Sha'asiris. B'doime to what? B'doime to Pesach. The Ramah, we said, the L'tchatchil is when? The L'tchatchil is you should start your Suda when? Before Chatzos. How does the Ramah understand that PURIM should be more chamer than Pesach? Pesach, you're allowed to eat Erev Pesach a Suda up until Sha'asiris. So why can't you eat your PURIM Suda up until Sha'asiris? So one teretz is, a simple teretz, that this day you could eat Erev Pesach till Sha'asiris. It's talking about lunch. It's talking about you want to eat a regular meal. Here, you're eating a Suda Gedolah, like you mentioned before, and Memela, that's why the Ramah says the L'tchatchila. L'tchatchila means that if somebody ran late and he didn't eat the PURIM Suda and it's still later after Chatzos, of course he eat the PURIM Suda. But L'tchatchila you should start before Chatzos because it's the Suda Gedolah, so you should be able to eat the Suda Shabbos L'tayavim. But another teretz is Alpi the Chaim. The Chaim asks, what is the difference between Pesach, that the halacha is that you're not supposed to eat a Suda after Sha'asiris Erev Pesach, and Sukkos, in the Shulchan Aruch, you're not supposed to eat a Suda after Chatzos. What's the difference? Why would Sukkos be different? And the emes says the Chavetz Chaim is ma'ir over there, and it says really, just like Pesach, Sha'asiris, Sukkos also Sha'asiris. But the Chaim says ma'ir. The Chaim says, I'll tell you the difference. Pesach, you know why you could eat up until Sha'asiris? Because when you sit down to eat by the Seder, the matzah, it's hours later, not right away by night, hours later. Therefore, you could eat later into the day till Sha'asiris. Masha'inking Sukkos, you know why you have to stop eating Erev Sukkot early already from Chatzos? Because comes Sukkot by night, you daven Ma'ariv, you go into the Sukkah and you eat right away. So that's why, to be able to have L'Tayavin, the mitzvahs, Yeshiva Sukkah, that eating in the Sukkah, you have to stop eating earlier Erev Sukkot. Masha'gin Pesach, you can eat till Shah Asiris, because by the time you eat the matzah, it's 12 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, it'll be L'Tayavin. Memela could be, Purim is the same thing. The reason why the Ramah says that Purim, you should l'tchatchila eat the Purim SEUDAH, l'tchatchila start before Chatzos, because Friday night, Matzah Purim, let's call it Shushan Purim, you daven Ma'ariv, might be a little bit longer of a Ma'ariv, the Chadoidi is singing a little more, the Ayom's a little high and into it, but after davening you go and you eat the SEUDAH, so that's why you have to start, that's why the Ramah says that l'tchatchila is to start the SEUDAH earlier. So what do we have so far? Very clear, very mesudar. For next week, Purim Friday, giving the share this week because next week it's Purim. The Ramah says l'tchatchila to start the SEUDAH before Chatzos. The Maril says l'tchatchila to start the SEUDAH before Shah Asiris. The Hainu before 404. Avada, this is all l'tchatchila. If a person, for whatever reason, was not able to, he didn't start a SEUDAH before 4:04, and it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, avada, he's a chiyuv SEUDAH, and you eat the SEUDAH then. It's interesting, like I mentioned in the beginning of the Shiur, this being that Purim for us is Friday, in Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh, Purim is Shabbos. Purim falls out Shabbos. The mitzvahs get moved off. You don't lay in the Megillah on Shabbos, goes to Friday, the Shloach Manas is with the SEUDAH, Sunday. Separate reason why not Shabbos, but it's not Shabbos. Why don't we move the SEUDAH Purim in Yerushalayim that falls out on Shabbos? Why do we push it further to Sunday? Why do we move it back to Friday? Let everything be on Friday. The Megillah is on Friday. Matanas Avyoinim is Friday. So let the SEUDAH also be Friday. Let's just move off the whole Purim from Shabbos to Friday. Says the Torah Temimah, because of Kavod Shabbos, if we're moving the SEUDAH off Shabbos, we would rather not move it onto Friday, because you're going to eat the SEUDAH, you're going to come into Shabbos, Shalei B'Teyavain. Purim by us falls out on Friday, so the mitzvah Medivra Kabbalah is to eat the SEUDAH on Friday. You eat the SEUDAH. The l'tchatchila is to eat it earlier. I want to ask the Olam HaShayla. L'chayra, these are interesting eitzah. Make an early Shabbos. Which, by the way, we changed the clock this Matzah Shabbos. So if Purim wouldn't be on a Friday, the minyanim that start when you change the clock to make an early Shabbos would start next week. Make an early Shabbos and be yotzeh the SEUDAH Purim and SEUDAH Shabbos together. You're following? You make early Shabbos. The plag is way before the Shkia. You make early Shabbos, it's Shabbos, Kedusha Shabbos. 1 second, and it's still Friday. So Mamela, it's Friday, you eat the SEUDAH, you have SEUDAH Purim also. Why can't you do both together?
You're Makabel the next day.
Very good. So the emphasis is, it's what to look into a lot more. L'maisa, when you make, once you're ready, daven Ma'ariv, is it the next day l'chol davar? L'mashal, the halach is b'di'evid, you could read the Megillah after plag. So be'etzim, if you makabel Shabbos already, is it already Shabbos and it's no longer Purim? Could you can't even yotzeh the SEUDAH Purim? But interesting.
There was hope that once you're done married, you can't be to any of it.
It's already the net. Very good. Let's say, okay, that's the Gabi. If a person made an early Shabbos after 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, the halacha if you matter the early Shabbos to blow shofar, but that's could be because shofar is muktzah on Shabbos. But the Ma'aseh is like this: why can't you make an early Shabbos and eat the SEUDAH PURIM together with the SEUDAH Shabbos? The Olam's handling very good. That could be it's already the next day and you don't have any more SEUDAH PURIM. The Maril, the Seiris Tshuva, and later of Shlomo Zalman all say the same reason why you can't do it, because it's not nicker that you're having a SEUDAH PURIM. You makabel Shabbos, you're eating the SEUDAH. It's not nicker that what you're eating now is also SEUDAH PURIM. That's why you can't do it. Not because be'etzem it's a good chap. Be'etzem. Now, it's not nicker SEUDAH PURIM. Interesting. I saw brought from Rabbi Yashiv. The Rabbi Yashiv says that b'di'evid, if it's already after plag, you daven mincha b'di'evid after plag, makabel Shabbos, and you have the SEUDAH Shabbos and SEUDAH PURIM together. So this brought clearly in the Rabbi Yashiv Kuntras. It's interesting because even though you're holding after plag, why should you do this b'di'evid, maybe do the other b'di'evid, and just eat the SEUDAH PURIM? Interesting, but that's clearly brought b'shem Rabbi Yashiv. But the Maril, the Seiris Tshuva, of Shlomo Zalman all say not to do it. Zicher, even Rabbi Yashiv also says b'di'evid. So if you're planning your day out for next week, Friday, l'tchatchila, the Ramah, I can't answer clearly if somebody should, the Ramah says do it Shachris. The second l'tchatchila is a Sha'asiris. But for sure that if a person didn't start before 4:04, there's no shaila about it, avada, you should start at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock. However, and with this I conclude, if a person didn't start at 4:04, or even if he did start at 4:04, and the SEUDAH, PURIM SEUDAH sometimes takes a while, and it's a long SEUDAH, and then comes the Zman of Shabbos, let's say the Shkia. You started the SEUDAH either before 4:04, or you ran late. The Lamaisi, you sat down to eat the SEUDAH at 5:30. The halacha is, once Shabbos comes, you're not going to eat anymore. Different than Matzah Shabbos. If you start Shalosh Shudas, you wash before Shkia, you start Shalosh Shudas, you can continue eating into Matzah Shabbos. Whenever you finish, you bench, you make Avdallah, you're allowed to eat into Matzah Shabbos. Friday night, that's not the halacha. Even if you sat down, even if it's a SEUDAH PURIM, comes the Zman Shabbos, you can no longer eat. You have to stop. However, these are halacha, and this is going to be a separate shir be'ez Hashem later this morning, 9 o'clock downstairs. These are halacha in the Gemara and Pesachim, brought in Shulchan Aruch, of Poiris Mapu Makadish. How you do it with the Cholab, with all the Prati Dinim, that's a later shir. It'll be available also on the shul's website at anytime. But what I want to bring out, Lagabi, the shir of this morning, the L'tchatchila before Chatzos, the L'tchatchila before Sha'asiris. Avada, if you didn't do it, start the SEUDAH later also. However, regardless of what you do, you have to stop the SEUDAH. You have to stop the SEUDAH when it comes Shabbos. These are din of Poiris Mapu Makadish. Goes into if you stop, you go into Kiddush. But Al Kaponim, that has nothing to do with, even though he's not just a heter, he's a chiv to make a SEUDAH PURIM on Shabbos, on Friday, but then there's another din, Avada, even if you're going to go into Shabbos Shaloi B'Te'ava, once Shabbos comes, there's a chiv Kiddush. Have a wonderful Shabbos.